Good afternoon, and I'm with my very good friend Julius Anthony. He is a major figure in both the St. Louis area and in the state, and I think working on becoming a major figure in the nation in the area of literacy. So I'm going to start by asking Julius to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and all that. And uh, it's now all you.
Well, first, thank you, Sam, for inviting me to your blog today. It's a wonderful blog. I always enjoy listening to it and hearing your guests. So just want to say I'm happy to be here with you today.
Happy to have
And I
you.
want to say you're also one of my mentors. So I'm happy to be here with you because of that as well. So I just wanted to add that. But
Well,
yes, I am.
that means a lot. Thank you.
I am Julius B. Anthony, president and founder of St. Louis Black Authors of Children's Literature and the Believe Projects. Um, I'm from St. Louis, native St. Louisan, uh, product of the St. Louis Public Schools. Really proud of that. In St. Louis, there's a big thing about what high school you went to. That's a really important tradition in the St. Louis ecosystem. So you always announce what high school you graduated from. So I'm a graduate of Metro Classical and Academic High School. And I'm very proud of that because Metro Classical and Academic High School has always been the top ranking high school in the state of Missouri. And it's also always listed on the US News and World Report, top 100 high schools in the country, in the nation. So we're very, very proud to be a Panther from Metro High School here in St. Louis. So
Go Panthers. All right.
yes, go Panthers. So graduate of Metro High School, also graduate of Howard University, and did graduate studies at Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm an educator by trade, have been in education for about 25 years now, and have primarily done most of my education work in early childhood and elementary education, but have worked in K-12 throughout my career. Um, my favorite job in the field was being a first grade teacher. Loved it. Wish I could do that always and forever because it really, really was a fun job for me. But it was also the place where I really understood the gravity of what literacy really means and the whole educational system, what it meant in how we school children. And it also is the place where I understood what literacy really means to us as a society, essentially. Because I began to understand the research around literacy and the importance of being on or above grade level by the end of third grade in reading and what that research says. And essentially, we know in education that if you're on or above grade level in reading by the end of third grade, you do better in school. You tend to be someone who makes it to 12th grade. You have a higher propensity of going on to college or university. And there is definitive research that suggests you will have a thriving adult life. And so literacy, we say in K-12 education, is the basis for all learning. And that third grade reading success is the markers. So being that first grade teacher, I first understood that. And so I have devoted my entire career in education to this idea of making sure that all children become literate. And in my latter part of my career, particularly these last few years and what in the work that I'm doing now, I have focused primarily on making sure that Black children become successful readers, mostly here in St. Louis, because of the gravity of what the data says about Black children and their success in reading here.
Okay, and that's a perfect segue into my next question. And I'll just say this in advance. I am in awe. I am in awe of the Believe Project and what you've been able to do. So I know that some of my listeners may be familiar, but not all. So give us a rundown on the Believe Project, how it came to be, what it's doing now, some of your more recent growth things. And if you give me the word, I can visit the website and show the website to folks, but I'll wait for you to tell me to do that if we need to. But Julius, it's time for you to talk about that Believe Project and all that wonderful work that you guys are doing.
Absolutely. So I was talking a little bit about the data around literacy, and I guess the why around literacy. And the why around literacy is basically why we started the Believe Project and what the data says for Black children here in metropolitan St. Louis. And that data simply is 75% of all Black children annually fail the third grade exam in reading, the state mandated exam in reading here in St. Louis. And that was the why for me. That was it for me. And that data basically we looked at was from 2014 to 2019. Now, if we look at the data from 2021, and that information is coming, of course, during the years of COVID, that percentage has gone up to 86%. So in the year
Oh
of
my.
2021, 86% of all Black third graders in metropolitan St. Louis failed the state mandated exam. So we're not improving, we're getting, it's becoming more nefarious for Black children. And remember, we said that third grade is the marker, right? And that there is a direct connection between third grade reading success and one's ability to have a thriving adult life. And if that is the case, if you're not on or above grade level in reading by the end of third grade, then that's a lot of children that are at risk for being able to contribute to their families, to themselves, and to a thriving St. Louis economy. So there's a lot of work that we have to do. So the Believe Project is designed to change that trajectory, not just for what we know that needs to be an important future for this region and for this city, but for just the individual human life, because we want all people to be respected in terms of who they are and their humanity. And we want all people to thrive. And so that's what the Believe Project essentially is designed to do. It's designed to make sure that every child has an opportunity to see themselves in text, in literature, in books, while they're in school. And we think that that is the true strategy for ensuring that kids become interested in reading. So we say that it's important for all kids to participate in what we know to be, or what we understand to be, the science of reading. And I sort of define the science of reading as those 5 elements of reading that we think about, that the National Reading Panel sort of designed, where the reading first work comes out of: the phonemic awareness, the phonics, the fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And we know that children need explicit instruction in all of those areas, and they need to gain solid skills in all of those ways. But I'm convinced that Black children need more than that. I'm not only convinced, we know that research suggests that they need more than that. And my philosophy is, and I call this philosophy, this pedagogy, I call the intimacy of literacy. They need interest, confidence, and joy attached to the explicit instructional process. And interest only comes when the text has some kind of cultural connection, responsiveness, or relevance to the child. There must be a cultural connection. Particularly, the children must be able to see themselves in that text. They must at least sometimes see themselves as the protagonist. And so when this doesn't happen, then The learning process essentially renders them invisible, renders them invisible. The International Literacy Association published a white paper in 2014, and they suggested that less than 6% of all text presented to American children in American schools, public and private, told stories about the Black experience, the Latinx experience, and the Indigenous experience. So think about that, Sam. Less than 6% of all texts presented to American children in public and private education told stories about Black, Latinx, and Indigenous experiences.
Okay, I'm going to interject here and say I know, and this is a lawyer asking a question he already knows the answer to. I know that for the St. Louis area and for the children that are part of the Believe Project, that it's just a whole heck of a lot more than 6%. And how did that happen? And tell us about those rooms that you've created all around our city.
Sure. And so, yes, that's the solution. The solution is this project called the Believe Project. And so what we have decided to do is to create spaces in schools where we know that we can give children opportunities to be schooled differently. In these spaces, at the core of the space is the literature. And we put at least 1,000 books in these spaces. And 90% of those books are considered Black children's literature as we define it. And we define Black children's literature as a story, a piece of text where there is a Black protagonist, period. A Black protagonist, period. In addition, in the space, we have unique murals. So there is a wall, a full wall, where you have a mural. And in that mural are large, life-size characters. And those characters mimic the diversity among Black children in terms of skin tones, hairstyles, and dress. That's important because we want to make sure that Black children have several opportunities to see themselves regularly in the learning environment. One of the unique things about the murals is that the children that participate in the Believe Project, and we call our children believers, and because that's who we see them as, they have begun to give the characters in the murals names, and they also have begun to actually read to the characters in the murals. And that's a phenomenal thing. That's something that we didn't expect would happen. And that's something that the children have begun to do. Also in this space, we design it as if it is someone's home. So you will see large, comfortable couches, chairs, a dining room set. You will see light pendants coming from the ceilings. It basically looks like a showroom, a piece of art, and that's important. And all the furniture is new. And it's because most of the children we serve live in neighborhoods where they typically don't get to see beautiful things like that. And so we want them to see beauty. We understand that there are several pathways to literacy, and we think that giving them a space that is their space where they can build their own agency is important. We make sure that they have access to local authors. So we want them to hear authentic voice. So Black authors go into those spaces. They share their literature with the students, with the believers, and the believers get free copies of their literature. We give them access to national New York Times bestselling authors. Those authors are always Black authors as well. And the students get free copies of their books. We have a great partnership with 9 PBS and PBS Kids. And so our children have opportunities to have access to a wonderful curriculum through PBS. We have a new one that's coming out this fall. And it will be a new launch that we launch on September 29th. So you're getting a scoop tonight, Sam.
All right. Thank you.
Because the intention was to announce it at our next Believe opening, which will be at Barack Obama School on September 29th.
Okay.
Um,
I want to interrupt you here and ask you some nuts and bolts numbers here. Okay. With this newest one, how many Believe locations are there? By the way, I know one of them is in Ferguson because I attended that opening. One of them is in the Ferguson Community Center, but some of them are in schools as well. And about how many children can fit in one of these amazing rooms? And they are amazing rooms. And I would add that you had the wherewithal to get local Black artists to create those murals, and that's another huge positive that the kids know that that's there. But just I don't think anybody, any of my listeners, are really aware of the scope of your project, how many locations there are, and how many children each of those locations can hold. So, can you give us some scoop on that, and continue to give us scoops about the latest opening? That's too cool. Thank you.
Sure. With the new literacy lab that's opening, it takes us up to 7 sites. So we have Ferguson Community and Empowerment Centers, Believe 1, Believe 2 is Sister Thea Bowman Catholic School in East St. Louis, Believe 3 is Glasgow Elementary School and Riverview Garden School District, Believe 4 is Old North Confluence Academy, Believe 5 is Halls Ferry Intermediate School in Ferguson Florissant School District. Believe 6 is Pershing Elementary School in University City, the school district of University City. And Believe 7 will be Barack Obama School and the Normandy Schools Collaborative. We're really proud of that one because it's our partnership with Nike, which is our first time having a partnership with a brand of that size. And so we're really excited about that. And then you're getting another scoop, Sam, because we will soon open Believe number 8,
Holy
which
cow.
is the number of Believe Beginnings, which will be our first school in the St. Louis Public School District, Frable Literacy Academy. And we hope to open that Believe lab in November.
Holy cow. I am just so impressed. And we're talking about each one of these sites being able to hold how many children and with access to how many books?
Sure. All of our sites currently have about 2,500 books in each one of the labs. Every school has a different number of students. So we serve kindergarten through 3rd grade students. But the literature in the spaces cover pre-kindergarten through 8th grade. So we make sure that there's literature that goes beyond 3rd grade because we know that some students in K3 read beyond 3rd grade. The other thing is we also want to make sure that the other students in the building can have some access to the space. So it's not a space that only children in K3 can have access to. We want all the students in the building to have access to it, but our program focuses on K through 3. Most of the time, most of the labs are a typical classroom size. So a lot of times you can get at least about, I would say, 40 kids in that space, considering all the other furniture, maybe sometimes even more, because at the space we have on at Old North, sometimes when we do our author visits, they will push in at least 100 kids in that space.
Cow.
And we'll do an author visit because all of our authors go in. It's a whole show that we do with our kids. When we do author visits, it's not just a sit down, read a book. It's actually a full Believe show. So we push about 100 kids. But here's the interesting thing. Among all of the Believe labs, we're up now to about serving 2,500 students, which is really like a small school district. So we're really proud of that we have grown now within this will be our 4th year in operation. And through the first 3 years were the COVID years. And over this period of time, we've grown from 0 to 2,500 kids. We think that that's pretty impressive.
That is very impressive. And put a quick plug in for your sponsors. Who's helping
Yes,
to put all these bills? Because I've been to some of these places, and the furniture's amazing, the space is amazing, the murals are amazing, but they're not cheap. So who's footing
yes.
this bill?
Yeah, so we have a lot of great sponsors and partnerships. Scholastic, IKEA, I mentioned Nike, Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals, 9 PBS and PBS Kids, Ready Readers, Noble Neighbor and Novel Neighbor, I See Me Bookstore. Um, we have partnerships with Turn the Page St. Louis. We have partnerships with um, books for newborns. And definitely should have said this, Sam. All of our teachers are also members of the St. Louis Regional Literacy Association, as well as they're members of the Missouri Literacy Association, which is the affiliate of the International Literacy Association. And both Sam and I are members of the St. Louis Literacy Association Board and the Missouri Literacy Association
Okay,
Board.
well, that's a perfect segue into my last little topic, and that is you are now the president of the St. Louis Literacy Association, president elect of the Missouri Literacy Association. I know that our organizations really support the Believe projects, among others, but as the current president of St. Louis Literacy and future president of Missouri Literacy, what kind of ideas do you have for the future? For what those organizations can do within the St. Louis region. And by the way, I'm going to make you brag about how much you've helped to grow those organizations. What did they used to be a year or two ago, and what are they now in terms of numbers? And I'm looking at the guy that did an awful lot of that. So it's all you about talking about MLA and St. Louis Regional.
Right. We have done really, really well. But I'm going to brag on Sam too, because I took the reins of presidency right behind Sam, who is my mentor, who actually helped prepare me to become president of St. Louis Regional Literacy Association. And I am able to do the work that I'm doing because Sam laid the groundwork for me to be able to do the work that I'm doing. So we were able
Thank you.
to
Thank you.
grow. No, that's true, Sam. I'm not just blowing smoke. That is very true. I'm able to do that because he put all the pieces in place for me to be able to step right in and do the work that we're doing now. But we were able to grow the membership exponentially. I think we went from where maybe about 60 or 70
I
members.
think at one point it was less than 40.
Maybe so. But we jumped really high past 500 within the matter of a year. We passed 500 members, and I do want to say at our last culminating event this past year, we were able to bring in 120 members from an appeal that we made that night for new members. So now we're probably up to at least maybe 600 or more members, which is pretty impressive. For the last over the last 2 years, we've been able to grow uh, to that point, which I think is pretty good. Also during the COVID years, but even more than that, what I'm really happy about are the national thought leaders that we've been able to expose, educational professionals here in St. Louis too. And so we started a speaker series, a national speaker series virtually to bring national thought leaders to our region, national thought leaders that we haven't heard before, and with different ideas that I think that this region hasn't really looked to hear from before. And we were pleased to get as our first speaker, Dr. Goldie Mohammed, who has been ranked as one of the top 10 professors in this country. And this last um, ranking that all universities use to rank professors in this country. And she was listed in the top 10, and that's pretty impressive. And she published a New York Times Now best-selling book called Cultivating Genius, and she was our very first guest. And I'm really proud of that. And I'm extra proud that we were able to get the immediate past president of the International Literacy Association, Dr. Stephen Peters, to be our second guest. And he published the book, Do You Know Enough About Me to Teach Me? So I'm proud of that. And then our third guest was Dr. Rachel Washington, who's also a well-known educator in her own right. And so I was really proud of that series and that we were able to bring them virtually to this region to be heard and to get different perspectives on how children should be schooled and educated around literacy. We want to continue that this fall, and we have some ideas about who we want to bring. We also have a really wonderful project that I think is really important, that we are working on to finish this year, that we want to culminate this year with, and hopefully premiere at the national conference. But it is a film and documentary on the intersection of hip hop and literacy and language. We think that that is an important piece of work that is necessary in this time and age that we're living in, that a lot of our students really connect with that part of literacy. And so what does that mean to us in our schools, and how can we use it as a tool to ensure that kids are becoming fully literate and great readers? And so I think that that's going to be an important piece of work, and something that I think educators are going to be able to glean from. And I think our region is going to be really proud that we were able to produce something really great. We got a lot of great people lined up to be a part of this film. And I can't wait to be able to brag about that as well.
Okay. Well, one thing you miss bragging about one thing that I'm going to make you brag about, and that is all the teachers that attended those speaker series. You arranged for them to get a copy of the book for each speaker. So that was just amazing. And we are in partnership with all the area districts, but especially the St. Louis Public School District. And that's something to be exceptionally proud of. So it just isn't often that you get speaker series where you get the book as part of the speaker series, and all at just doing amazing things for the membership. Okay, we could go on and on and on. I know we could. You've got such a list of accomplishments, but I think this is where we have wrap it up time, final thoughts time. So take it away.
Final thoughts. Well, thanks again for having me here. I think that we're living in an interesting time when it comes to schools and schooling and text and literacy and all of those things, and books, and what books should be in school and what books should not be in school. I think the most interesting thing is I'm happy to be living in an era where people are open-minded enough at this point in our juncture in American history, where we are able to be heard as Black educators and Black thought leaders as it relates to looking at what is good for Black children, and specifically Black children, in a way that has never been done before. Because Black children have never really done well as a group in American schooling and American education. And I'm glad that we are living at a time where there are more open-mindedness about what we can do to improve how Black children will do in school. So those are my final thoughts. it's good to be living in living now and be an educator and to be someone who is carving a pathway in that work.
Okay, and well put. You are definitely carving some new paths and a leader in that respect. So I deeply appreciate your work here in the St. Louis region. Deeply appreciate your work with the International Literacy Association. Deeply appreciate your work with the St. Louis Black Authors. That's just an amazing organization. And so now we come to the very, very final thing, which is a silly tradition I have for my blog, and that is we always end each interview with a Zoom wave goodbye. So if you would give us a nice wave, and I'm going to give you a nice wave, and that's our Zoom wave goodbye. And thank you, Julius, for this wonderful interview. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you, Sam.